Hello, everyone. Uh, Welcome back. Hope everyone had a great Saturday and or already having a great Sunday. And if not, are prepared to start having a great Sunday. Um, as we first get started, are there any questions, thoughts, or comments? Just any thoughts, or questions, or comments whatsoever that anyone may have. Please feel free.
Elvin, this is ST. Going to ask you that yesterday. Are the personalities, are those more attributes, or are they different trains of thoughts?
Okay. It's not necessarily, well, not necessarily, it's not just trains of thought. It is more so all the different aspects of you, but it's, it's kind of difficult. This is what I was trying to set a basis before going forward, like a foundation needed to be set. And what I am talking about can be a little bit difficult to, I guess, grasp or imagine. But when I talk about these different personas, I'm talking about who you are in your totality and what that means about who you are in your totality. For example, when we made that scenario where somebody plays like they are a doctor for a while, and then they play like they are a fireman for a while. They play that they're a nurse, some type of athlete, anything. Well, every single thing that you have ever concentrated on, in a sense, is a combination of all of your identity together. So that's what I mean by more so different personas. So that inner voice that you hear, that is you. That which you do not think about, that regulates and monitors and does everything for your body and keeps your body here in existence in the physical realm, that is you. The you from a different carnation, that is you. And not in a sense, but literally every single thing. For example, let's say your specialty right now is in pharmaceutical sales, and you have a lot of knowledge on that. Well, let's say in another carnation, let's just say you were a mathematician or astronomer or something like that. You have access now, and all of those things and all of those carnations are a part of you. So that's what I mean by persona. I don't mean that they're separate individuals or separate entities from yourself. I am simply saying, trying to explain more so, it- trying to more so explain that right now we are concentrated, literally concentrating on this particular physical life, but it is a lot more to us, which we've been talking about for quite some time now with I don't want to say the idea, but as we mentioned Elohim, as we mentioned all but one. Does that bring up, make it a little bit more clear?
No, no, yeah, I understand what you're coming from there. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Sheldon,
Yes, ma'am.
as you were talking about life lessons in a sense, it reminded me of Star Trek and how they used to go to the holograph deck to create different life alike scenarios to test their strength or to test their cunning or to test their stamina, etc. And it sounds like what you're talking about are those life scenarios that we've had that cause us to expand and to grow spiritually. Uh, so that's sort of what it reminded me of.
Yes, that and that is definitely a portion of it in the same way how we come into this life. When I say this life, I mean this physical life with certain gifts or things that we are naturally, um, I guess, just great at, more so than the normal person. And it is completely natural and seamless. And it is as if we already have a certain knowledge of things that we never studied or no one taught us. These are abilities that we have brought into this particular life cycle, in a sense, from other incarnations. And like you said, with that Star Trek example, that would have been something that someone worked on before. And this also goes into what I mentioned in terms of us being in this particular life cycle in the physical realm to actually create and to work on abilities and things of that nature. And I was thinking earlier this morning when I was running, that idea that to marry those two ideas of the inner and outer ego, and that it's not a competition, and thinking about also how it relates to um, Cain and Abel. And when we're talking about, it's not separate, it's not a competition, it's not that that we should in a sense shun the outer ego, or for example hate the body or hate this physical life. It is the inner ego in a sense, and I don't want to separate these things. I'm just trying to help us to as a group to grasp these concepts. But it's the inner ego that is doing all the work in making sure or maintaining our body in this physical reality, in a sense, in helping us. And so it also goes completely contrary to this particular life cycle being, bad or terrible. This is all intentional. It is all part of us actually embracing this experience as well. Um, Yesterday, when I talked about the greatest gift, one of the greatest gifts in having the ability to create our reality, it is a gift to um, have these different experiences and embrace that and begin to learn how to do that more consciously. And so, going back to when I mentioned and brought up Cain and Abel, the connection between those two is that Abel actually always served Cain, even when Cain didn't, try to annihilate him. It is not even possible. It's just that Cain didn't have the awareness to realize that. In the sense, we, from a religious standpoint, we always talk about the idea that God was always there. We were just running from Him, so to speak. Well, in that sense, it's kind of like the same deal here, where even if Cain tried to, he thought that he was killing Abel. Abel was always there, and Abel at the same time was always there to help whenever Cain was ready to change or whatever. It wasn't a situation where um, Abel just uh, ceased to exist, and it wasn't the case that Abel was like, and I say this rhetorically, man, I'm not messing with Cain no more. I can't stand Cain. I'm finished with Cain. That's not the situation that happened. And uh, yeah, I'll stop there for at the moment.
I have a question. Good morning, everyone. Sheldon, I may have missed your explanation on yesterday, but you're using the word coronation. Coronation. I don't know if it's like reincarnation, coronation, and you probably explained it yesterday, but I don't think I got what you were saying. So when you're using that term coronation, what is the meaning? What do you say?
Okay, I am basically talking about the multiple carnations of the different, I guess, life cycles we've spent in this physical reality. And so I began explaining, or more so introducing, um, I don't I don't want to say idea like it's theoretical, but explaining, I should say rather, that we are more than just this particular physical life, that we think how we think about ourselves consciously, or that we are most familiar with. The part of ourself that is concentrated on this physical reality and our current physical reality lives. So I was explaining, starting off from there, going into the inner senses and the inner ego, that being just as much of a part of who we are and what we actually do, or the functions of that, just that we don't think about it from a logical standpoint. We kind of look at these as autoimmune systems in our body, things of that nature. Explaining how that not that portion, but that is us in the dreams that are then outside of this physical reality, and explaining that all in who and what we are is not all physical. So from that point, Kathy, we have always existed, and we will always exist. There is no such thing as death the way that we traditionally think about it. It's just focus, more of a focus in certain realities. And if you want to think about it in death, or in death terms, for example, and I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to everyone. Every time you go to sleep at night, you start dreaming. When you start daydreaming in those things, that in a sense is a sort of death, if we look at death the way that we physically look at death. Because at that particular time, our consciousness, or who and what we truly are, leaves our body, while another portion of ourselves maintains our body functions until we return. So that's what I mean by carnation, different carnations. I mean other lifetimes where you have lived in this physical reality, as well as other dimensions, in terms of honing different abilities, growing different abilities, and things of that nature.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, these life cycles, are they simultaneous life cycles that we are, I'm still just trying to put it in perspective and understand. I think I understand what you're saying, but is it something that occurs simultaneously, that I've lived through this and I'm in the now and present, but internally all of this is already in me and I've already lived through it? Is what you're saying? Am I totally missing what you're saying?
You're not missing what I'm saying. In terms of, I guess the answer to your question is yes. And so now I'm going to attempt to explain how that is, and while acknowledging it may be difficult to grasp or accept. So in this particular physical reality, which we also talked about, it exists time and space. Time and space does not exist in every reality, dimension, etc. The use of time and space is to actually slow things down so that we have a time to process and create, and for it not to happen immediately. In the dream state, things that we want are thoughts. They manifest themselves in an instant. I mentioned yesterday as an example. Also, when we daydream, when we have dreams, etc., there can be a split second or a very, very short interval in terms of drifting off, daydreaming. But within that time frame, excuse me, there is no limit to the things that could have transpired, or we, could have experienced in that particular time. And I don't really know how I'm trying to grasp the words, but essentially everyone can relate to that drifting off for a second or two. and then wondering, wow, how long was I out? And then looking at the time, and then just a few moments have passed where it seems like you may have been away in whatever was occurring for quite some time. The same way in when they say when people say my life flashed before my eyes, and all of these things or remember or you go through in the matter of a split second, um, that in the same way. So going back to the larger question in terms of all of these, given other examples, we talk about things happening simultaneously. Okay, I think this is really cool. Sometimes when you hear, and when I'm talking about time does not exist. Sometimes when you hear a voice in your head telling you to do something, or immediately you have a hunch to do something, and you follow that, that is you already being at that moment sometime in the future, but actually remembering and thinking about something. And the you that is remembering and thinking about something is the same you at that particular time, a voice to the past you telling you to do something in particular. In the same way, yes, when you go to sleep at night, when I told you you're multi-dimensional, the sleeping you is at the same time working things out that you don't even necessarily remember, but there is a process of trying to remember your dreams and getting up every day where you can get used to that, charting down what it is you dreamed about, etc. Where are you working out certain things? Um, in subtle ways that this works, for example, is think about every morning when we get up. Typically, we don't think about it this way, but our dreams have a huge impact on whether we wake up grumpy, happy, etc. We literally just went through a whole bunch of stuff we don't necessarily remember why, but we wake up in a certain mood. The same way when you have certain dreams and certain dramas play out, etc., our bodies are affected. When we get happy, when we get angry, when we get afraid, when we feel love, different chemicals are released in our bodies, and our bodies are moderating themselves with what it needs, to be rebalanced. In the same way, we wake up after doing certain things in our sleep. So yes, all of these things are happening simultaneously, and at the same time, it's so much that is actually taking place that from the logical thinking mind, we cannot even grasp it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's partly what I saw when you first brought that up last week. The dream state takes place and it has access to the universe. It is above time, and so you can dream about something and come from 2 or 3 different spaces of time and bring them all together. And have you ever dreamed and there's somebody in your dream that you know that you've never met? So it's tying everything together, and it brings it to a place of the here and now, and not necessarily I dream things in sequential order as they've happened in the earth. So that to me is amazing within itself, and we're at a place I think where we can recognize that. But I'm gonna tell you something else. I think I heard you say it without saying it, and I just want to talk about it for a minute. It almost sounds like you're saying we are our own ancestors. That link, if there is a carnation, and we know that there is an ancestor, is that part of the dream state? Is all those parts of your being maybe coming together and feeding each other or helping each other out of a situation? When you said that, I just kind of saw that.
And that was my next question, Ron, because I'm
Yeah.
where you are on that thinking. That was going to be my next question.
I have a
Um,
huge
yeah.
smile on my face. Go ahead, Pastor Richard. Go ahead, Pastor Richard.
I was
Yeah.
asking what will be your next question.
Are we then, in essence, our own ancestors?
And when we finish, when you finish, Sheldon, I'd like to address that if I may.
You're okay. I mean, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
We are our own ancestors in regards to our spirituality, in regards to the energy. You don't have coronations of my grandmother. You don't have visitations from my grandmother, even though she's an ancestor. You have them from people you're familiar with. And the people that you're familiar with are only in your dreams or your visions because you are familiar with the faces. If you really think about it, when you have a visitation of an ancestor, you don't hear a voice. You experience it. You experience it. And what you receive as someone saying something to you is what you are feeling more than what you are hearing with audibly. The other thing is that we live in a world of coronations, and I don't think we really recognize it. For example, when we read the scriptures about Cush being brought back to Elohim, or brought back to his sense of being Elohim, even if it had to be done by crossing the sea in chains. Now we can't find it. What happened? There was an incarnation that took place. So we have an incarnation. We have incarnations taking place as we live. The idea of me being a father, a husband, a teacher, etc. Those are part of the communities that, as Claude says, that lives inside of me. Those communities are developed within the confines of my essence because those are the things that help put together the puzzle of what I'm on this earth to be, if I pay any attention to them. The other incarnation that we have experienced is if you go to a setting that you were in prior to what you have learned and prior to what you have experienced, if you go to that setting, it is foreign to you because there has been a incarnation or a incarnation of a life that's different than what you have experienced. So it's almost like you are born again, and I don't mean in the sense of the church. I'm talking about you are born again, or you are experiencing things that you never experienced in this life before. So I do believe that we have continuous carnations if we pay attention or if we embrace who we are. So, any questions or comments about that, or does it make sense?
It makes sense, but I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So based on what you just said, using the example of the scripture about Cush coming in chains and how that has totally been removed now, we can't find it in the scriptures at all. So are you saying as we become these things, as we actualize these things, as we live these things, okay, this is going to sound kind of crazy, as we live these things, it removes it from the written word because now it's the living word, we're living it, or I beg your pardon?
It's fulfilled.
Right, that's the word I want. It's being fulfilled. So are you saying that is why the word has to be written on our hearts and not so much in a book, because eventually the book ceases to be?
We become the book. We change the book.
Okay.
This is the thing. What story did you write about in the third grade? You don't know. So, even if you could remember, can you remember all of it? No. Why? Because it wasn't important. To you at the age you are, I should say. If you read the scriptures, they are important. So, if you really give some thought to it, when we crossed the bridge from religion into sincere search for the understanding of spirituality, that is when we could no longer find it. We had gone to charismatic settings. We have heard that word taught in charismatic settings. We've taught it ourselves. And when we started seeing that the charismatic settings were no different than the churches and their religion, that is when it was no longer there, because we created a world where that was no longer needed. How did that happen? When we understood that our Creator was responsible for our enslavement, our Creator oversaw everything that we have gone through and continue to go through. When we embraced that with an understanding that it was not meant for our bad, but our good, we didn't know what that looked like. Now we do, because we are understanding the deity that we are in terms of the image and likeness of Elohim. Once we embrace that, it is not needed anymore, because from that we are able to open up the macro for the benefit of humanity. The book is simply there to give us an idea of who we are and why we have circumstances as we do. And once we understand them, then they're no longer necessary to be there. I do believe that the disappearance of that was to show us that we are capable. We have the inherent ability to transition worlds. And transition worlds were things that was in the world prior to that doesn't exist in this world that we have brought into fruition, that we have created. And we have created a world where people began to question not only who they are, but why do they think the way they think? Why are they experiencing the things that they're experiencing? And there are those who are still struggling with the transference from one world to another. And the world that we live in is a world that we have, that tells us we have an obligation to introduce humanity to the environment in which we live. And when that happens, what do we see? We see the perpetrators of all the isms that were intended to be detrimental. We see the representatives of that kind of mindset seeking to learn from the Cushite. And when Cush begins to teach each other as well as the perpetrators or the Europeans, it is at that point that we began to notice a shift in the mindset of humanity, and that shift comes with the exposure of everything that needs to be altered. And then we began to see, as we did with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, that more Europeans were in the streets than there were Africans, because European mindset is shifted, which means that we also have created another world, because Europeans have never been in the street in any numbers like that in support of the rights and respect of the African. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and I just have one last question. So I'm sorry I'm monopolizing the time, but I just
Sorry,
want to have an
Kathy,
understanding of this. Yes,
can I add something before you ask your next question?
sure. Uh-huh.
And stop apologizing for asking questions. Please go, Audrey.
Um, Hush, Sheldon. Just to add to what Pastor was saying, when we rely on a book can cause confusion because there's so many different people interpreting it, and maybe having some dubious motivation for their interpretation. So if we're relying just on the book, we can go down some very dark paths, or we can go down some very wrong paths. But we say that we always say that something resonates with us. And I think that resonation has to do with the vibration of your inner spirit. So that you know the truth when you hear it, because it does resonate with internally. And I think too, nobody accepts anything unless it resonates inside them. So in terms of relying on a book and just the book, it would be confusing and sometimes used for misrepresentation and misinterpretation. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely, and I agree 100%. And that's why everything is resonating with me now, because it's making so much sense. And my last question for now is, now that we are understanding incarnation, are we now saying that we are debunking a myth about reincarnation? If incarnation occurs simultaneously all the time within us, where does that put the understanding of what we have always thought about? Energy doesn't die. You come back to live this life as something else later. So are we now moving away from that and saying that that's a myth? Or does it tie into anything that you're teaching right now?
Yes.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah, yes. So first of all, I was saying carnation wrong, and I was meaning to say incarnation, but I was purposely not saying reincarnation, because the reincarnation is more so definitely linear and like on a string. And as we just talked about, as you just alluded to, we're talking about something that is taking place simultaneously. So it's essentially, for example, like growth in all areas at once. It's not walking along, like I said, in linear times, not walking along a line. So, for example, when just as an example, there's something that you want to, in a sense, work on, or something that interests you or whatever, or you want to, when I say work on, I just mean an ability or get clarification in, kind of like grow stronger in something that you may be, let's say, struggling with, forgiveness or whatever. And I'm going to jump back right quick to when we're talking about dreams. Easy to work on things in your dreams right before you go to sleep is to simply make a suggestion or something that it is that's interesting to you that you want to work on. It might be like a relationship with someone who is in this life cycle or not, even someone who is passed away. It could be working on something as simple as becoming more aware of yourself, just literally anything. And you will begin to work that thing out, whether you're conscious about it or not, within the dream state. And in the same way, there could be certain things that you're actually interested in, you want to work on, that you're thinking about a day dreaming. Let's say I'm not thinking about anyone in particular, but even being a better a parent, or a better understanding of being a parent, or something like that. And that is actually taking place just with that intention, whether or not you're conscious of it, while you are doing other things. So when we talk about being connected to our ancestors, when we talk about something that we're interested in doing, it's not us as a physical being that we are aware of that is doing that particular thing or working on that particular thing. It's almost the idea of I don't want to separate. I don't want to cause this illusion of separation, but it's like your gene. I would just say your genius self. Your genius self is working on all of these things. So you're bringing in all of your abilities, all your tools that you have honed forever into working out this particular problem. One last thing as well, unless there are any immediate thoughts and questions on what I just said.
I have a thought.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead, Sheldon. I'll do it later.
Because I was gonna just jump back right quick when Kathy was talking about language and what Audrey was talking about the book.
All right. When I look at incarnation, reincarnation, I see it differently than I've seen it in the past. It's not a reincarnation of a total individual as it was prior to exiting the body. It is an energy mixture that comes into that enters a human body at birth that brings it to a place of understanding who it is, or a catalyst to help that take place with those who are brought into this earth to do that. Example, we talk about some children we know as you've been here before because they talk like, or they have the mannerisms of someone who was here before, meaning that they within the essence of their being, the energy of a previous, for lack of a better term, previous personage, previous person is being reflected in them, which means that they are utilizing and the energy that was before them, especially in family structures. We see in family structures people's mannerisms that reminds us of our daddy, reminds us of our mom or grandmother, things like that. What are we actually seeing? We're not seeing the reincarnation as we have thought about it as I thought about it in the past. We're seeing reincarnation in the essence of the energy that's God in that body. Does that make sense?
It does.
And therein lies the difference. Because I've heard people say, I want to come back in a rabbit. Well, you weren't a rabbit the first time. You don't have the energy of a rabbit. You have the energy of the essence of Elohim. And the essence of Elohim is not that rabbit. That rabbit was not created in Elohim's image. You were. So that says that you will never become anything other than the image of Elohim, because that's a permanent state of being in terms of your essence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions about that? Okay, I'm done for now.
I guess it's wrong when I think about it. I think about each part of that person that ever changing, that it's evolving into something. It's you're evolving into a new and improved entity, right? Or is it? could there be multiple things driving it, or is it all, the purpose of peeling off layers to get to truth?
You don't necessarily bring what represent, what did you say, Ron? You become a better person, right?
Yeah. Are you? Yeah.
Well, you don't
There has.
necessarily.
Okay.
Unless you see it from the aspect of 45:7 Isaiah, right?
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell is the essence of the Southern slave master, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that he has the energy of his lineage, which was enslaving people of African descent. And if I can say that he became a bad person because he's reflective of that energy. However, when I look at it from the spiritual perspective, when I see it through the eye of Elohim, I see something different. I see the necessity of Mitch McConnell. I see the necessity of Donald Trump. Both of them have the same thoughts.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead. I see what you're saying.
One is more manipulative than the other, but they represent the same mindset. And they become a catalyst that moves the African to look at itself and see who it really is. The most heavily melanated entity in the earth is the African. And that points to something. That points to deity. And when you embrace the essence of Elohim, the essence of being a deity, then what you're actually embracing is the obligation to transform the dysfunction of the tree of knowledge into functionality, the tree of life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So on the one side, one is moving towards truth, and the other is necessary because it has to be the catalyst to keep pushing that move.
Yes. Yes. So you have to have both, because if there is no right, then there is no wrong. You have to have both in order. In other words, if we look back at what we talked about when we spoke about duality, that has to exist in order for you to end up with singularity.
I see it.
Okay, I'm done.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, Sheldon, everyone. This is George Antilli, and I just wanted to respond to something, Ron, you said yesterday in terms of all of us, seeking not only our true identity and, being Elohim, but something that resonated in my spirit that I think engages all of us is not only just coming to the knowledge of our true self, but it was something, again, that I read that talked about, I want to know me. I want to think, see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, but I cannot because I am spiritual energy in potential rest in my eternal space. I want to be and continue to become so I will know that I am who I am. And I am the creator who will know that I am the creator, but the only way to know is to come through physical form and have a human experience. In order to involve and have a spiritual experience, then I know who I am and I am who I am. And this, particular reading, really, resonated with me in terms of realizing that melanin activates, our senses. And as we, come into that awareness in terms of our ancestry, I think that we're in an experiences where the incarnations or the reincarnations in terms of what we know, we're coming to a deeper understanding of realizing it, before the beginning began. And I just wanted to, share this thought because we know that the seromelanin basically gives us the opportunity to dream during the day, and the melanin itself, gives us that opportunity to dream at night. So when we ask ourselves, that particular question, what is my purpose, for living, or some of the questions that we have, stated many times, but I think that there's revelation that's now manifesting, we're coming into that place of knowing. And so I think that that's, just something that, we constantly, I know I constantly ask myself, again, what not only is your purpose for living, but if it was something that I need to know, what is that? And I think that's just the question that I always constantly ask myself, what if I could know something, what is it that I truly need to really know? And I think we're getting to that, point of understanding. So I just wanted to share those, those thoughts, because I think it's important to connect not only to our ancestry, but to be able to appreciate the hieroglyphics with regards to those things that were given to us through our visual images, and those things that were not even spoken, but we are able to understand it through the eighth sense. So I just wanted to share those thoughts. Hopefully it resonates to some extent of what we're saying. I'm done, Sheldon.
May I add to something that George said?
Sure.
George, when you mentioned ancestry, something was brought to my memory. When I don't know whether I spoke about this yesterday or not. However, if I did, just bear with me. When the shooting took place, or the massacre took place in Buffalo, New York, one of the people who was shot was an employee at that store, and he was carrying out groceries for someone and helping them put them in a car when he was shot. Shot him in the neck, and he called his mom and told her he had been shot, and someone helped him across the street away from the area, and they took him to the hospital, and the doctors were baffled that he had gotten shot in the neck, and rather than that round penetrating his body as it technically should have, it splintered, and it did not hit his spine, his jugular, or any major vessel in his neck. And when he got out of the hospital, he had no pain whatsoever. And his mom was asked by Anderson Cooper, how do you account for that? And she said that my son was divinely protected. The ancestors protected my son. The universe shifted in order for my son to live. That's how my son was protected. And of course, he didn't know how to respond to that, so the interview ended. I say all that to say this. This idea of ancestral protection and ancestral wisdom being transmitted to us is not just in the ramification of trying to understand spirituality. What I hear more than I've ever heard is people talking about, especially Africans, talking about how ancestors has made provisions for them, how the ancestors has protected them, and the dependence upon the universe to shift in order to transform the mindset of people who are evil and angry at themselves and taking out on other people, as was the incident there in Buffalo, New York. I just want to share that so that we will know that we, as Ron stated yesterday, we'll begin to see the shift in the thinking of Caucasians based upon what we're teaching, but also we're beginning to experience a shift in the way the African is thinking, in that the idea of giving all to Jesus has ran its course in favor of understanding that the spiritual essence of our ancestors are the source of our wisdom and our protection in conjunction with the universe itself. Thank you.
Any thoughts, questions, or comments at the moment?
It's Ron. I have one, and I'm trying to. A lot of stuff has been said in the last couple of weeks, and my mind is even shifted back. Several months ago, even longer, we talked about energy levels, and if you are a seeker of truth and you are sincerely trying to recognize and understand who you are, you're operating at a higher frequency. Or if you are not, if you just, there are things that you can do to increase that frequency and increase the melanin in you. I look at that and I pull that together with what we've talked about so far, and I'm wondering, as creators, what are we creating now if we are still operating in fear, if we are still operating in this notion that things are happening that we have no control over, or things make us feel powerless and even hopeless at times. Does that still create? Are the Africans, based on their fears, creating a lot of what we see going on, the violence, and are the Europeans merely capitalizing off of that fear? That sounds harsh, and I don't mean it to sound harsh. I'm talking spiritually here. That ability to create our reality. What is our reality? What do we see as our reality? And if it's in our DNA, all the violence and all the things that we have seen and heard, and is that still the driving force in the things we see today? Just a thought.
Sheldon, you go address it?
Yeah, unless you had something you wanted to say.
I will when you finish.
Okay. The question is a very, very good question, Ron. And the answer to your question is yes, play a role in creating that. We talked about the frequencies of energies, et cetera. It's not that we actually have more right, in a sense, to energy. It is that we have the ability, as anyone has the ability, to create consciously and to create from being led from, as we talked about yesterday, that inner ego, or in a sense of what we mentioned today, in a sense, being led by the wisdom, I would say, of your ancestral self. Um, and in doing so, to be guided, like I said, to create consciousness. However, everyone is always constantly creating. That is actually the nature of us. That is the nature of our reality. That's the nature of this reality. The things that we go through personally, we create. The things also that go on in the world as a collective, we create. And I just don't mean us on this phone. I mean all of humanity. So and with that being said, going back to yesterday talking about thoughts and beliefs, it is those thoughts that we concentrate on that create that reality before us. So everything that we deal with, we create. In the same way with our bodies, when we worry, stressed out, overworked mentally, um, forget the word I'm looking for. Essentially, where we're not balanced and grounded, we create those same conditions within our body. And usually, and not saying it's the only way, but usually sickness or something follows in our body in terms of ailments and there being an imbalance. We play a role in creating those things in the same way we create the world. In regards to the the fear, and you talk about the African, and you talk about um, um, the Western mindset, to be able to understand and see beyond that and grasp more and walk in more to what we talk about will lead us to a place to understanding that there is no need for fear, or fear does not have a place. That is why the concentration, as taboo as it may seem, um, with love and compassion, um, is, I would say, such a great thing. Looking at it from the outer ego alone, of course, love and compassion is not great. Love and compassion is not great because you need to be strong. You need to protect yourself. You need to survive. And usually, in those particular things, you are concentrated on just the physical reality alone. When there's a concentration on love and compassion, those things are created more in our everyday life for us to actually see in the world love and compassion, and as well experience love and compassion. The other things that love and compassion automatically do is it opens ourselves up to a greater reality and makes us more free. And what I mean by more free, it opens up us up to things like creativity and tapping in and experiencing and being aware of those inner experiences that I told you about. Um, so, for example, in terms of how that just works every day, no one really creates from a place of fear. So much. Uh, so, I guess that's the quick answer at the moment for your question.
Thank you.
Oh, one last thing. So, sorry, it just occurred to me. So, for example, when we talk about war, it is not a, and I've said it before, it is not a hatred of war that combats war. It is a love of peace that actually, and combat is the wrong word. I would say would cancel out kind of the idea of war. When there's just a hatred of war, it is that disconnect that is created and is still present. And in a sense, it automatically just puts you on the positions you on the opposite end. But at the same time, when there's a hatred of something, you're wrestling with it, so to speak. Whether it's a concept just within. So a lot of what we're talking about today has been within. So I want to keep that same mind frame as I'm talking, because that's the mind frame that I'm talking in. I'm talking about all this stuff that happens outward first happens within us. It is it's a psychological thing. It is what we're actually communicating. Funny, what Catherine was talking about, the words, not in the words, but speaking more so from our inner senses, kind of. Remember, our inner senses is what is actually driving the creation of things. So going back to that war example, it is a love for peace that, in a sense, reconciles and automatically eliminates or cancels out that war, because in that having a love for peace, what you're actually doing is you're having a love for balance in a sense. You're having a love for oneness in a sense. And so that balance and that oneness is what is actually being concentrated on and is what actually is being created. So war, hatred, fear, all those things are things that separate or push something off and afar, so to speak. The love of peace is more so reconciling and pulling together and trying to put things in their proper place.
And Sheldon, I know Pastor's next. I just want to add just what you said. I think that is that last that example is the solution of the missing piece. That is the how-to of everything that we've learned, and that kind of hits the nail on the head. So I like that last part there, and maybe we can expound on that a little bit more in a minute. But thank you, Pastor. Go ahead.
Well, if Sheldon wants to expound on it now, he can, because, excuse me, pretty much locked in on what I see. So, Sheldon, if you want to ask you, go right ahead.
On the love thing?
Yeah. I think it is quite easy to focus on the wrong thing, because religiously, we focus on Jesus. We focus on the church. We focus on taking a mantra, a verse that we're very familiar with, and meditating on or thinking on it, and not even knowing what it means a lot of times. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head what our focus should be on. Instead of trailing that thing, you see hatred. So your mind is on sadness, it is on hatred, it is on healing from that. But you just mentioned that you instead of trailing that thing, you concentrate on my love for peace. And it just kind of puts a balance to everything that is that you've been seeking all along. It just made sense when you said that, to me anyway.
No, and absolutely. And the thing about religion and the idea of follow Jesus is that we don't look inward. And as Audrey said earlier today, in terms of looking within, and going to Kathy's point about what is in the Word, the greatest teacher guidance that we will ever have is the guidance from within. And the guidance from within goes far beyond anything that can ever, and the combination of any and everything that can actually be written down or read or actually listened to from without. And going back to the eye of Jesus and looking towards Jesus, what we were not doing is we were not taking or not even allowed to take responsibility for our actions or taking something in our hands and changing it, though at the same time we were always creating. So with what I just said, not only becomes the power to change our lives instantly, but also the responsibility to do so as well, that it's up to us to do it. And if something does not take place in our lives, it is our fault. Or I'm not even gonna say our fault, we're the reason why. We're the reason why anything happens in our lives. Now, this is not bad to beat up on anyone and not to beat up on myself, because certainly these things I have come a certain ways on, but I too am experiencing and working on these things in my life personally. Forgot the part that I was about to say, but the matter is we're creating. So when we think about it's kind of like what we've been doing for a very long time in terms of the African and the Western mindset. This has been a feedback loop. We have been operating from a place of sorrow sorrow, fear, hatred, et cetera, and in a sense creating that, and then kind of like the same thing as war. The Western society is kind of more so a result of that and feeding off of that as well. While at the same time, everyone has the ability to create and begin to look within, I would say, at any particular point. Sorry, Audrey, go ahead. You have something?
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing, because I think in our society, a lot of issues, and especially one that really comes to mind is the abortion issue, they come at it from a position of not exactly hate, but almost hate, because they're very intolerant and they only want you to do what they want you to do, as opposed to coming at it from a position of love for the person or whatever. So yeah, that what you said about that, and I think, didn't Martin Luther King say something like that? You can't, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that, or something like that. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
Someone's about to say something.
No, I just agree with Archie. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can.
I got a quick comment, if it's okay. Y'all moved a little bit past it, but in the way I express, when you're using the word create, I guess I think of it more in what we used to talk about earlier about mind in the matter and that sort of thing, or subatomic physics. It's all energy, all possibilities you can think of as energies, and it's what you will draw to yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you can control all of that. That takes tremendous self-knowledge and awareness. But so I don't see it so much as we're creating, as we're drawing those energies and they become concentrated, and then they manifest in a way that interferes or affects our life. Just like, I mean, in a way, the idea of what you were talking about, I guess I could say, peace and war, it's taking away the power that's in that kind of energy that results in war. And there are stories of people that have, in native populations, of people who've come into villages and communities really hostile and angry, and the villagers just accept them and go on in their normal way. And eventually, I guess you could say, maybe it's a little idealistic, that individual runs out of the energy that it takes to keep being so negative. So that's not easily done, and it's not necessarily something one person can do against 100, but it's an idea. But for me, I find myself more and more, because in my case, at least, I sense an ego attachment to the notion of power. But in terms of energy and attracting or releasing or not holding on to that, it's much less a sense in me that it's this sort of ego part of me that's winning or losing, if you will. Okay, so that may seem like a small thing, but I think the words we use sometimes, they show where we are and in the journey, and they can become reinforcing in a way if we don't stop and look at them every once in a while. Why am I saying it this way, kind of thing? That's it.
Let me, if I may, kind of sort of piggyback on what Richard said, at the same time respond to the initial question. I do subscribe to the idea of drawing it to us, also being taught to us. We deal with fear the way we have been taught to deal with it. We have been taught to deal with fear two ways. One is violent, and the other one is religious humility. How were we taught that? We were taught by the experiences that we have endured. When you're afraid of something, you do everything you can to stop it. That's violence. Religiously, when you're afraid of something, you tell Jesus about it, and you do some marches in the streets, and God go change it. That's how we have been taught. However, we have seen that that is not the solution to the fear or the hatred. Because both of those ways are equal darkness, trying to drive darkness away. The source of this fear and this hatred, this violence, is the European mindset that we have incorporated by force in most cases, and through education in other cases. Being taught the valiant, victorious nature of our European conquest, as opposed to looking at what it really is: slaughters, genocide, etc. In order to bring it to resolution, we have to approach it differently. And the different approach is recognizing that all of the sources are energy sources. And when we see that, then we understand that it is necessary to repurpose the energy. And the more we expose the barbaric nature of the Western mindset, the more we are in the position to repurpose energy for loving kindness, for forgiveness, etc. One of the reasons that there is so much violence in our community is that there's no more violence there than there is anyplace else. The violence, black on black violence, is no different than the percentage of white on white violence. However, the only one that is put in the news media is the black on black violence. That's the energy, that's where the energy must be transformed. when we transform the Western mindset, that also is a transformation for what that mindset has produced. Hatred, violence, etc. One of the reasons it is so easy for young Africans to do what they are doing in terms of shooting or killing each other or anyone standing by is because they have no expectation of living beyond 20, 25 years old. They have no reason to live. When you really think about it, what are their expectations? Expectations are based upon your environment and your exposure. If all you are exposed to is violence, and all you experience is violence, then your expectation for living beyond their age is not comprehensible. So when we repurpose the energy, it doesn't start with repurposing the energy in the African community. It goes to repurposing the energy at the root of the violence itself, and that is the Western mindset. We have been also taught to look to Jesus, and that is purposely done because when we talk about looking to Jesus for solutions, number one, it is not scriptural because Jesus said, "You don't pray to me, you pray to the Father." Number two is if you look at the image of Jesus in African churches and African homes, is a white dude who looked like a hippie. So when you talk about looking to Jesus for solutions, you talk about looking to a European for deliverance and for solutions to those issues. Subconsciously, that's what you're doing. And what you're actually doing is going to the source of violence, going to the source of hatred, to end the source of violence, source of hatred. And you're taking the approach that you've been told to take. When you beg someone for your freedom, you will never be free, says Malcolm. The way we are to be free is to understand the essence of who we are. The way we are to end violence is to repurpose the energy that permeates the mindset of the European. That was our purpose for being brought into this earth in the beginning. To bring about balance in the earth means that we must bring into existence a mindset that respects life and livelihood, a mindset that does not separate people on the basis of skin color, but embrace everyone. And when we do that, what we will see is this entity that's living in this body becoming human as it was supposed to be, but it's in the hands. It's under the authority, actually, of the African to do that. We are highly melanated, so we have a greater responsibility to bring order to this earth. That's our purpose. In order for us to be the true essence of Elohim, that must be our goal. And that goal is not achieved by killing someone, by hating someone. That goal is not achieved by going to court or going to Congress. That goal is achieved through loving kindness and through a refusal to engage in the hatred and the violence, or the refusal to engage in the game of politics that keeps everything the way they are or make them even worse without even saying so. So the engagement of the African is to make sure that it is not the source of evil in terms of fear and anger and revenge. This idea of I'm the head, not the tail. The whole religious concept of that says I'm the head and not the tail means that I'm a Christian, so I have authority. That's not what that scripture is speaking to. It's simply speaking to the authority that we have to bring peace into this land, to bring peace into the consciousness of humanity, and not be dragged along the way by those who have no affinity for peace at all. We have, and this is going to sound probably ridiculous, but it doesn't matter. We have the sole responsibility to bring peace to this earth. There is no doubt about it. Elohim says, you are going to recognize who you are, even if I have to bring you across this great sea in chains. Since you didn't recognize who you are, since you did not seek to become aware of who you are and make changes spiritually, since you didn't do that, let's go across the sea. Now you're in chains. Now you're enslaved. Now you are enslaved without chains. Now you're beginning to question the efficacy of the religion itself. And what you're beginning to observe is that religion is the thing that keeps you in bondage. And through your observation, now you're becoming aware of the essence of your being, the purpose of your creation, the purpose of you having been enslaved. That is the reason, Ron, that we have no origin. When I say we have no origin, I'm talking about in terms of African community origins, as in Nigeria or Ghana. We have no origin in that regard. We are not a people without a country. We are a people with the ownership of a universe. Because we have what we would deem no country, our roots are not in Africa only. Our roots are in the global community. Our roots are in the universe, and we get all of our direction from the universe. We don't have a specific African culture to hold on to. Everything that we regard as ours has been changed to something negative or stolen from us. The only thing that we can hold on to that no one can take from us and that no one can speak to it in a negative way is melanin. And that is the reason that we do not hear about melanin in med school and chemistry classes, in religion or other settings where you should, because there is no negativity tied to it, and you cannot tie negativity to it because of what it is. Meaning that you cannot tie negativity to the most melanated people on earth. And mind you, I say most melanated, because Europeans are melanated as well. However, there's far less melanin there. It does not mean that they are not Elohim. It means that they are not aware of who they are. And that is the reason the interaction between us in terms of the teaching and coming to conclusions and understandings about what the scriptures are truly saying cannot be based upon the Western mind. It has to be the African mindset that brings the reality to the scriptures, as opposed to the manipulation to the scriptures as did the Europeans. Any questions or comments about that? Thank you.
Are
Make
there any,
sense?
yes. Are there any other thoughts or questions? Have we thoroughly, has everyone who's had a question today's question been thoroughly answered?
Yes.
Yes,
If I say yay, nay, maybe?
yes.
Yeah.
For today.
Yeah, I guess with all that said, I'm finished. The only other thing that I would say, Ron, to your question is, instead of and this is to all of us, is answer your question, but I'm not talking to any particular person, Ron. The answer to your question, the fear, hate, et cetera, or is to make more of an effort not to concentrate on the thing that we see as a lack, but concentrate more so on the desire. And so what I mean by lack, of course, that fear and hatred comes from a place of, or is in a sense, a condition or a type of lack, because what we are really saying is things are not acceptable to us in the way that we would like them. And typically, if you dig down deep enough in any particular situation, is I cannot accept this thing because I cannot embrace it and I do not see love there, or I or I am not being sustained. And that's what I mean by love. Love is sustaining. So whether that is being physically sustained in terms of nutrients and food, or comfort, feeling joy, all those things involve love. And so that's why I say lack in some sense is an absence of love. If you think about the earth, you think about creation, all that exists. If you're hungry, you feel like the world, in a sense, is not loving you. You do not live in a loving universe. So that's what I mean by a lack, and how the opposite of lack would just be love, compassion, and peace. Now, with that being said, going back to the war scenario, thing that the object of the desire, and that what you were seeing is missing is that peace. So the concentration would then be on the peace and not the situation of what it looks like without the peace, in terms of our creating. And then to one last point in terms of the energy, the reason why I used creation again, Richard, is because war is a physical manifestation of the energy that is being, I guess, accepted or acted upon into the world. And so, yes, things are typically first affected with our interaction with energy, but ultimately it manifests itself into a physical realm. All of the, for example, when Audrey mentioned abortion or death or racism or hatred, the last step for those things are a physical manifestation in the world that have come about from some type of acts. So in that sense, all of those things have been created, but starting off from thoughts and beliefs. So that's why I continue to say creation. But I agree like I said, that is just the last manifestation of that. There are no
I
other,
like it. Thank you. Yeah.
thank all of you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
There are no other thoughts or questions at this particular moment. I'm done. Well, actually, I'm not. I didn't address something that I quickly reminded myself earlier about Catherine. Catherine, you were talking about. I think you mentioned. I know you were talking about language, and you were talking about. Trying to remember. Kat, do you remember exactly what you said when you were talking
I think
about?
maybe you're referring to when I was saying why that scripture disappeared. We became this word. Is that what you're referencing?
So yes, so essentially everything, and we've been talking about this a long time. I think now it might be more concrete, but we've talked about it lightly because I guess it definitely probably made some of us feel uncomfortable that we kind of overrode the Bible and we challenged things and we did it with confidence. And that goes back to the standpoint when I was mentioning that there's no truer guidance that we actually can get that will ever come from without, but it comes from our inner selves. And that's what it is when Jesus was talking about being one with the Father. I'm saying now that Jesus would admit that he never could teach us, for example, and I'm just using the religious terms in a sense, the same or as much that we would learn from the Father. And that particular language also that we're picking up is essentially, not essentially the same thing, but it is a form of telepathy when Pastor Richard mentioned earlier that we don't hear words, we experience things and it's like we automatically pick up on data. So it's like almost kind of like a download where you immediately tap in, but what you have tapped into is essentially like volumes of information instantaneously. And that's also because it is that information is coming, or we are operating in a sense that is outside of the physical realm, where data doesn't need to come in slowly. And so yesterday, for example, I had read this thing that I wrote down about language and how our language works. So I'm just going to read it and then I can explain it, especially if there are any questions right quick. A note on how the inner senses and the eighth sense work. In comparison to the logical mind with a language example, language, as we typically know it, is rather a slow affair. Letter by letter, strung out to make a word, and words to make a sentence, the result of a linear thought pattern. Language, as we know it, is partially and grammatically the end product of our physical time sequences. We can only focus upon so many things at once, and our language structure is not given to the communication of intricate, simultaneous experiences. And so I say all that to say, to tie to what Pastor Richard said in terms of us experiencing things when we're in other realms, and it not being language where it is actually slowed down and spoken to us. It is more so a form of telepathy. It is the same thing we experience when we say, I got a hunch of something. And we may not at that time been as aware of that hunch or accepted it, but everyone experiences that. We just dismissed it or don't necessarily understand from our logical conscious mind what is actually taking place. And then any thoughts or questions on that before I say one more thing? Okay. Another thought that I had when I was running this morning was what and how science works. We, from a Western mindset, have looked at science as the world of the earth being miraculous, and having all of these different types of interactions, with compounds and molecules and things like that. And I made this statement last Sunday that all matter is conscious. Well, what is actually happening also with all these things that we look at as science is those things are being acted upon in terms of reacting. And so the greater source of who and what we are the drivers that create all of this and drive all of this chemical reactions and things like that to actually take place. And with science is at a point where it cannot understand the consciousness of all of this, because this consciousness comes from outside of the physical realm. Now I am finished. Are y'all still there?
We're still here. I'm just wondering how far you run this morning.
Obviously, there were no trees in the way, right?
20 miles at least.
No, it wasn't that long of a run. I'm gonna be honest. I was the plan to begin the run was 5, but I only did 3. Well, a little over 3, about 3.5.
Oh, good thing there were no big stones in the path. But okay.
Sheldon, you ran, I walked.
Don't worry about walking. Medicine tells you it's all good. It's all good.
Well,
Sheldon's just a little more hooked on the endorphins.
No comment.
That's admission.
Good
Yeah.
job. Thank you.
Been there.
Thank you.
This has been excellent discussion today. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Almost
I
fun.
at some point want to look at abortion and how it plays into today's society. That'll take about 5 minutes. That's it. So I'm not going to do it today. Maybe tomorrow. But
Okay.
sure.
Well,
All the-
I'm not gonna do what I was about to do. I was about to make one statement on that thought that quickly came, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm also not gonna be able to make it tomorrow, so that would be very unfair. But I can tell you off the line, Pastor.
Oh. Work. You can't help it, so I'm waiting.
What you saying? You waiting for me to say it now?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sheldon, come on, you all but have.
No, I mean, I don't want to be opening up something, and then I know I'm not going to be able to be necessarily tomorrow. Like
Why have you
that would be right.
Why have you spent 2 minutes on it?
So we'll talk about it.
Okay.
You tease.
All right.
I guess you have to tune in next time. Well, you know how they do it in the cliffhanger. All of you have a great day. And
Thank you too.
we shall link up again.
Have a good day.
Everyone have a good day.
Good day.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Sheldon. Have a good day, family.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.